Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, I thought it might be interesting at this point, since this is the last chapter. It is 4th of December. This is the last week on the Enterprise D build. I still don't have the pennants. Mail has come, the pennants are not here, so I will do that as a shot later on. But I want to put this little intro at the beginning, and then we'll get into the week's work, or the 2 or 3 days work. And then at the end, I'm going to put in some comments or a segment of the Zoom call that Phil and I had back on, the Thanksgiving weekend. We got together and talked about, kind of a debriefing, kind of a woulda, shoulda, coulda talk about this build, what we liked, what we didn't like. Phil's already posted the entire video in length, and I'll go ahead and make and link to that, either in the description, or I'll put something up in the corner, I don't know. But if you want to see the whole thing. But I want to make sure I put the pertinent parts that I want to make sure get seen. I'll put those at the end of the video, and then we'll do the week's work, then I'll come back and do the wrap-up. And just by coincidence, this was a little snippet that was on Lower Decks this week. I hope I don't get copyright strike for putting it in here, but I thought it was very funny, so I'm just going to place it right here.
While the rift to your dimension is still open, we'll be sending you back soon for the Purple Enterprise to pick up.
What color is your Enterprise?
No color, just neutral gray.
That seems like a missed opportunity when purple is an option.
And that kind of sums up my thoughts about painting colors on your starships. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the 13th and final week on the Enterprise D build. As you can see, I've got the patient all prepped for painting. We're gonna repaint this entire area, or most of it. I'm gonna be blocking off a lot of this stuff here, but we need to paint over where this joint has been refinessed, and I gotta tell you, this is a cumbersome thing because it's up on a table, and the table needs to be about a foot lower. I am having to, because I am a short fellow, am having trouble reaching up above to get to where this needs to be, and then plus the fact I've got to maneuver this ship around on this table in such a way that I can get to the entire thing is making it difficult. Now I've got everything draped off that I'm hoping to protect. I'm going to try to confine my spray, but at the same time protect any errant overspray. And we're going to start with taking this back down basically to gray primer. We're going to gray primer over all of this, and we're going to see how the joints look with the primer paint on it. I have remasked the windows because I want to keep those clean. These ones up here, I'm going to just tape over the whole area because I'm hoping to keep my spray out of there. But better safe than sorry. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a gray pass. We're going to see how the joint looks. Probably a black light blocking pass over top of that. And then a blue. We're going to go back to how we did it before. We're going to do the French blue out of the airbrush this time instead of the spray can. And then the gray, and then our accent color. We're basically going to rebuild the entire paint job around this area. So, and then we'll paint the doors back in. Okay, I've done the first pass of gray, and the seam is actually looking pretty good here. Now, ironically, we do want to see a seam here because that's where the neck joins, or where the saucer separates. So we do want to see, it's not going to kill us if we do see a scribed line there. So I've penciled it back in to kind of show you where it should be. Hopefully we can see that all the way across. And I think what I'm going to do is just take a scribing tool and just lightly put that line back in. Then I think the next thing to do is we need to do a good light blocking coat. So maybe I need to do that black coat first, and then we'll worry about scribing the lines in. I noticed once I started sanding here, we got real close to where these light bulbs are, and it just threw off all kinds of light leaks. So we're going to have to do a pretty aggressive black coat, and maybe all the way through here, and just count on repainting the whole thing. All right, we are back to the blue stage. Everything is still taped off, and I'm being ever so careful, trying not to get any overspray on it, but won't know exactly how successful we are until we've taken all of this off. But hopefully we should try to at least get back up to a semi-good match. This is the blue, the French blue phase. We have this to dry, and then I'm going to retemplate the things that must stay French blue, and then we will do the gingham back over top of that, the original gray. So what I need to do now is go back to my original masks file and cut out the ones that I need for this area for things that stay blue. But this is the rattle can paint that I have put into the airbrush, so it's going to need a good chance for it to dry. This may be as much as I get done today. I don't know. I can cut the masks and get them ready, but I think I'm better off waiting to put anything on top of that until at least later today. Okay, this is me with the masking over top of the blue. Now you'll see that there are several lifeboats in danger here. I look forward to, well, I checked and made sure I had enough to replace them in case I needed to, but what I plan on doing is very carefully spraying around those. But I will be putting gray over top of everything you see here, leaving the blue to shine underneath where the yellow masks are. Same as I did the first time around. I got to push this down a little bit more. And then we will do a pass of the highlights over top of the bits that are left. So yeah, it's we're back to this. It should be familiar to you though. I replaced the pinstriping here, and let's get some gray paint out. Alrighty, so now I've got the gray sprayed over top of the masks. We'll give them a little bit more time to dry, for the paint to dry, and then we'll peel these masks back. And the last thing to do today will be to put the highlight pass on it, which isn't all that much. There's very little of it, but I will. That can be even more refined because it's the area of those are so much smaller that I don't have to do any wide scale masking. But so far I've only lost one escape pod, which is right here. One lifeboat. I've only lost one lifeboat. And then after I see, really the next thing I could do, I could be painting in the dark gray back on the this band and the shuttle bay doors, while I'm waiting for this to dry dark enough or dry enough to put the highlight coat on. And that is a fine amount of work for today. I'm going to let all these paints dry overnight. I'll come back in tomorrow and paint the accents. And we've got doors here. We've got phaser strips to paint in. Then everything gets a gloss coat. And then we start getting ready for decals. But yeah, I think that's a fine place to finish it up. Oh, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, and it's decal day. I have sprayed the back of the neck there with a gloss coat. Believe me, no easy feat to do. Running in, running out, and you can't run this thing anywhere. So we've got a coat on it that has dried. I have painted in the doors and the phaser strips. I've cut out all the decals that I need to go in this area. I've got my map here. I've got my enlarged piece for the lifeboats that's going to go there and show me where the lifeboats need to be. And I've cut a good pile of lifeboats. These are all the decals that I have that are left that need to go there, plus the ones that go for the maneuvering thrusters on the saucer. So that is pretty much it for the finished work. Now, I have not finished the inside of my shuttle bay, and I don't think I'm going to work on it this week either. That may be closer to summer. I might revisit this and do that extra detailing inside there. I mean, it's done, but there's no life to it. There are no shuttles in there. There's no cargo containers in there. It is, the floor is done and it's decaled and all that. So it's ready to go when that happens. It's just not something that I have finished quite yet. I will leave that maybe either for a cold winter's day of work or into the spring. But I've got to find some way of making that door not just removable but repositionable. Some sort of magnet setup, I am sure, will go there. Enough fiddling. Let's do this area, and then we are. I need to install the nacelle covers. I have them over here. I have sprayed the inside of them orange because I thought the red lights by themselves were just a little bit too candy red. So just a little bit of orange on the clear parts, and that will allow the red light to shine out a little bit better. I know this one is clear. I have to decide whether I'm happy with this being clear and these being orange, or whether I need to just put a light painting coat of the Tamiya orange clear over that. But they're going to go something like that. And that's pretty much our marching orders for today. So let me go get my accoutrements of decaling, and we'll start the work. Alrighty, the neck stripes are in. Now those might look a little excessive. They might look a little much, but I assure you, they are there on the updated Rick Sternbach drawing. They're less noticeable here because they're not red. They don't stand out as much, but they're there. And I've got the shuttle bay numbers in. There's an Enterprise that goes right behind the 1701 there. Got that in. I am getting ready to put the last of the lifeboats in, and I've got these parentheses on. I'm getting ready to do those now. But the lifeboats will be the big last thing. Well, no, there's not. There's quite a lot to do yet. There's a stripe that goes here, red stripe, pinstripe that goes there. Of course, the engines need to go in. And then the big showy things are going to be the directional thrusters. Once I get these parentheses in, I'll start on the directional thrusters. Well, we're down to the lifeboats now. I've got the directional thrusters on all four quadrants of the saucer. I've got the parentheses on. I've got, not much since the last time I checked in, but I wanted to let you know. Let's do these last lifeboats. And, I've got these guys on. You didn't see those. And then we'll attach the impulse engine housings. The impulse housings are in. Yay. I had to shim the top of them to get them to point at the right angle. Had to shim both of them. But they are in. They are appropriately sad. They kind of have a droopy eye look to them. We're going to let all that dry. I put some steel stick, some two-part epoxy in there to maybe take care of a light leak or two. And just noticing how crooked that 2 is now, but when you're coming into it, I think it looks fairly straight. And I don't have a replacement for it, so I'm going to have to live with it. But all of the lifeboat decals are down. So this is one flat coat away. Well, touch-up paint. Touch-up paint around the impulse housings. And Excuse me, and then we are one flat coat away from being finished. Okay, for my last little trick of the day before I take a break and run to the post office, I got the magnets on the door. Here we can see two magnets sitting like, yeah, it's ugly when you do that, but it's unnoticeable from the outside, which is important. But I can slide this back into place and it holds it perfectly. And that's what it's all about, Charlie Brown. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Wednesday. I'm pretty much done with this ship. Now, the only thing that has left to be finished are the replacement pennants on the nacelle. So I'm going to give it one more day. I'm going to wait till the mail goes today. And I'll either have the pennants in the mail or I'll just finish this video and post it. And then I will make another addendum to it when I have the pennants and put them on and do a final breakdown then. But this looks to be as good as it gets for the exact moment. I actually went out and got a piece of furniture today, or not furniture, but a display case that I can put this thing on, and hopefully it'll take care of a couple of other kits that I've got that have been backing up. It's just a question of where that cabinet is going to go. But this was the last thing I did yesterday, which is to put the shuttle bay door in. And I think I'm even going to hold off lighting it up until I get those pennants on. We'll make that a big special thing. I know all the lighting works, so it's not an issue with that. I want to wait until I've got the red stripes on there, and then we'll do one last lighting, and then we can do the beauty pictures, the beauty pass. But there's that joint. You barely see it. I know it's there, and I think I'm going to scribe a line there, at least draw in a pencil line on that to highlight it. But that is the finished Enterprise D with an understandable asterisk next to it.
So here we are. I'm setting the scene because it is November the 30th, and I have just gotten off a plane from Florida. Now, while I was mid-flight at 38,000 feet, I did get to chat with the Aztek dummy here, and he suggested that we memorialize this build with a post-mortem video to discuss the pros, the cons, the where we are, how we feel. And I thought it was an awesome idea because you do need therapy after 15 weeks. It's actually been 15, maybe closer to 16 for me on this build. This is the Helios 1650 Enterprise D. And so without further ado, I thought we would jump in. Lou, are you finished as of today?
No, I am not finished. I have scant few details to finish. I need to reblend the neck shoulder joint. I need to get the decals from Keith for the pennants for the nacelles. And then I've got to retouch all of those decals that go on the top of the Cobra head. And then other than that, those tiny little bits. I'm about 2 days worth of work from being done.
So I need, well, let me get out of the way. So whoa, I need a flat coat on the whole kit and caboodle. And where my Bassard collectors are, I think I'm going to go ahead and follow your lead and get a clear coat of Tamiya red on there, just so that when all the lights are off, it feels like it has a little more energy than it does with just the clear Bassard collectors. And then I'll go ahead and I'm just going to very carefully put in just a little bit of smoke around those edges, just to give it a little aging. So other than that, she is, from my perspective, I mean, put a fork in it.
Start talking about, warts and all. Let's talk about the kit as received.
Okay.
The kit as received, not a good kit.
No, great piece of packaging. It came in one piece. But here's the thing. What I didn't even think about, because I was a little, I have to tell you, from my perspective, and you know, I am years and years behind you in terms of my skill and knowledge. But what I didn't think about was really examining it for what it was in terms of, could it be warped? Should we dry fit the whole thing? And see where the issues are going to be. I didn't even think about any of that. And if I could go back in time, I would have had that stand built right away, and I would have dry fitted the whole thing onto.
That brings me to kind of the roundabout way of what I was going to say with talking about the kit as received. Lesson one: do not build this kit without an adequate stand. You've got to have a stand, and you've got to have something that is leagues beefier than what they provided for that armature. That armature, it isn't even a joke. Jokes are funny, and that armature is not even funny.
No, and the mere fact that they just thought that somehow that was going to get attached to the metal plate.
Yeah.
And that was there's no way it would have snapped. The weight of, I mean, there's just no way. It wasn't, they didn't even give us any reinforcement for the saucer to attach to the neck assembly. Nothing.
No, you were expected to use that one bit of, resting it on the top of that armature to take all of the weight of the saucer. It just was not well thought out.
No.
I'm not here to beat up Helios, but I will tell you, never, the first lesson I learned from this kit was never buy somebody's initial offering.
Yeah.
They weren't ready for it, wasn't ready for prime time. No. From what your experience was with the people that you dealt with, they weren't prepared to make good.
No.
The only thing they ever made good on was replacing the metal plate that was too fat at the outset.
Well, they were kind of forced into that, and they were also forced into replacing the deflector dish, which
that's true. I forgot the deflector dish was an obvious botch.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I have to hear the words, well, it's only version one more time, I think I'll go to Germany and strangle somebody.
Yeah. Well, it all started, if you can remember, while we're on this subject, and then we can move on. But if you remember, I started getting, I was so clever to think that all of the series of holes in the bottom of the nacelle were an alignment. They were wiring, and they were for you to align to your, with absolutely, no pins or any indicators at all in the pylon to attach. And of course, when I reached out to Daniel when he was not ghosting me, he said, "Oh, that's just an artifact. Ignore it. It's an artifact from the 6 foot."
The second thing is the lack of instruction.
Zero.
Zero instructions. Lack of instructions. Lack of, yes, I know I know that's a warp nacelle. I know where it goes. I don't need assembly instructions, but how to assemble is a different animal.
Yes, but I go back to, had they have ever assembled it, which he was honest with me, he never had.
Right.
He never did. The two that he built as commission builds were from test fires. He had them. God knows what he had to do to grind them down or do whatever he had to do to make those work. Now, he claims he's a professional model maker, but to leave us with, to offer a decal set with cheap inkjet decals that I sprayed 3 sets of Bonder on, and mine disintegrated. I pity the fool who tried to lay those down, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, that he offered a lighting kit that was also a joke, in my opinion.
Well, now I will tell you that was, I mean, obviously the soldering of the individual LEDs, that was a non-starter.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at the end of the day, the one thing that didn't let me down was the lighting board.
Absolutely.
It worked as advertised.
Yes, it does. And
now
I will
there was
make that caveat.
there was that, nonsense of the alt positive on off, which does absolutely nothing.
No,
There was no reason to even hook a switch up to that because it did
no,
nothing.
no.
The cell warp effect was horrible. And rather than choking down the blue LEDs to like 80% of what they could be all of the time, just to get that flash, they should have had them at 100% and then had an additional string that came on during the warp effect.
Yeah.
If you wanted to add a brighter thing.
Yeah.
Simple fixes like that. I don't like the fact that my blue LEDs in the nacelles are running at about 80% brightness all of the time.
Yeah.
I want it brighter than that.
Yeah. And I ran extras, by the way.
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter how many you put in there if they're only running at a certain power level.
It's choked at the board.
And that would have been an easy fix.
Yeah.
And I'm not even electronically minded, and I could figure a way to fix that up. I would have liked an individual switch for the impulse engines.
Yeah.
So that you can gauge when they're on and when they're off, because they shouldn't be on when the warp engines are on. I mean, they're two separate systems.
No, we could have had a lot more fun with it too. There was an opportunity here. I mean, for the size of the L car we were sent.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, was obnoxious. I mean,
yeah, and the person who thought that was well printed shouldn't be allowed near a press.
No, but they could have done some fun things like had Picard say engage and then had an effect, or they could have had fire all photon torpedoes or all whatever. And
there could have been a battle mode where it fired a bunch of times.
Yeah. I mean, just to give us something to play with.
Oh yeah. Now there's a lot of stuff that they could have done with the design of the parts that they didn't do. They could have described the lines in the radial lines in the grade for the saucer.
Yeah.
All of the hull section lines could have been engraved. They could have engraved those cargo doors on the bottom of the saucer and on the bottom of the belly. They could have had engravements for those. They could have given us position markers for all of the little phaser strips. They could have given us a position marker for those grates that went over the pylons,
right? So
that you put those in the exact right place where they're supposed to be.
And I'm sorry, if you're going to offer a lighting kit for something like this, the idea, I mean, I did try. They gave us a wafer full of addressable SMDs, and I'm even close enough. And I tried, and I was delicate, and there's no way a month of Sundays. It could have taken me 3 months without exaggeration if I'd have done 6 or 8 a day.
Yeah, that asking the average this kit wasn't advertised to the average modeler.
No,
asking the average modeler to do that was ridiculous. The fact that you were able to source a light strip that did the same thing tells me that if they had spent 2 minutes on the internet, they could have included that strip in their lighting kit.
And should have.
Yeah.
And the way you came up with that very clever idea to corsetina everything so that it could actually turn the corner was very efficient, and it was a clever way to get that effect in there, because I struggled with that, which is why I built those cumbersome light boxes.
Well, that brings us to things we learned while building this thing. And that was one of the things I learned, was how simple that ended up being.
Yeah.
To do that. And the other thing I learned in the techniques that are products that I'd never used before, and that is that gel, the UV gel. Now, when you come to things I wish I had done differently, I wish I had waited and used that gel in a secondary hull as well, and never even used that fun recall, the first stuff, the heavier stuff, the gritty stuff. I wish I had never used that. I wish I had done all of it with the with the frozen gel UV paste.
Yeah, I'm afraid that was me leading you down, the wrong path. It was a moment in time when the frozen gel was not available.
Right.
And so I started experimenting, as I like to do around here. I like to test kitchen things.
Well, I say it's one of those things. It's like it was the best thing I'd ever used until I saw the next best thing.
But I realized something else too and I remember the day I was having success with it. I did not have the AC on in the shop. It was 100 degrees here. And I had gone in for lunch and I came back and I remember the cam was on the desk and the light was pouring through and it was warm to the touch.
Yeah.
And it was very it was not as sort of sandy and as hard to use when it's in its regular state. So maybe that had something to do with it.
Well, it just well, it's like I said, it was the best stuff I'd ever used until I got a hold of the can of the gel, which for those big windows I wouldn't have used anything else.
Right,
But
right.
I'd never used UV putty before, so add that to the arsenal. That's
Yeah,
something
no,
else
it's a
very often.
great piece of kit for anybody. At whatever level you're at, used, like everything else, if it's used effectively, it's a great piece of kit. I just want to go reverse just for a second because I watched your 12 update.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because well you had some advanced plans. I used the Sternbach blueprints.
Right.
I used this and I noticed that that the windows on our model were just wrong. They were just wrong. And so you couldn't even use those as indicators to where things should line up.
No, you couldn't. And the hull being as thick as it is, which helps us for light blocking, but you got to have your light like right behind the window, or else it's not going to shine out the thickness of that hull.
No.
And anything that was slightly off to an oblique angle meant you weren't going to light your window very well, which the main problem with that was in the neck.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get down in the neck to block any windows or to really do anything except put a bulb behind it.
No,
It was
exactly.
tough to get in and do light blocking.
Well, and
was,
I had a lot of SMDs. I had a lot of SMDs on that. I mean, I had light everywhere, and it is just not coming through. Where I had hoped, you did a better job than me on that cluster of windows on the top of the star drive on the neck, just forward of the shuttle bay, the large shuttle bay. You've got that cluster of. I would have.
no, I think that's their arboretum, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it is. I would have loved to have had that lit a little more. Had I have thought about it, I would have put a little box in there.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we obviously had to do was make a decision as to when, what parts were going to get assembled in advance and what parts were going to be permanently attached to that frame, that beautiful steel frame that they made for us at Avalon, and how you were going to proceed. I did appreciate your counsel on you got to get that together because it was the best thing I did because it made it a lot easier for me to start plugging in and working around. But of course, I had this thing on my lap for a long time, so I could work on the end of the. And let me tell you, that sucker is 20 plus pounds. It is.
Oh, it's heavier. It's heavier than that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one of the lessons learned that I wish I had done is I could have stood to go back and crank that nut down a couple of more turns. My ship is starting to work loose a little bit because of that crumple piece that designed is crumpling a little bit too much.
So I had the same issue, but I think we talked about this. I got a bunch of medium viscosity CA, and
Mhm.
I just poured it all over that nut.
I
And
couldn't get to that nut by the time my
oh,
problem started. My
oh,
problem didn't start until I
c-
was,
I was
jockeying the thing around with the bottom of the saucer already on, and that's
I
when
was having that problem from day one. I mean, I just
yeah,
couldn't get it flush. So once I had locked it down, it was solid. It didn't move anymore. But one of the other things I do regret is I feel like we kind of rushed the design of the control panel and how it's attached to the stand. I'm pleased with what we came up with. I think in scale to the model, it's appropriate. I
yeah.
wouldn't have wanted mine any bigger, but I think it could have gone through one more design phase.
Well, there's a natural limitation in trying to put a touchless button and then trying to light it because you're creating the shadow of that button on your. There's just no way to do that and then shine a light behind it without seeing it.
Right.
That
Well,
was
yeah, and going back to instructions, we had no instructions on how to use the touchless buttons. We had to learn how they worked and what they didn't like. I mean, proximity touching, they didn't like to be in proximity to other buttons.
you have to put just even the most minimal of barriers between them, but
Right.
you still had to isolate them.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I mean, I see you put yours on the side. I put mine on the front. I've already run into some difficulties reaching under there to hit a button and to
Yeah.
go back and chance, to see. But I don't see any better way of doing that because I can't. My reasoning was still valid in that I didn't want to. If I put it on the left-hand side, that limits how I can display it wherever it ends up going. And
Right.
by putting it on the front, it works in more different situations, but it's still not as um, it's still not as clean as being able to bring it out off of the stand and
Right.
put it somewhere. But then all of a sudden, if you're doing that, you're getting into creating a piece of furniture for it, and neither one of us wanted to make the coffee table version.
I think that one of the other really big issues, I mean, just sort of talking about the painting, for the amount of money we spent on this thing, not even the decency to give us any kind of paint guides or, to show us what reference material they used to produce this kit so that we could all be on the same page.
Yeah,
That
finding the My Enterprise D website source was a lifesaver.
it was a
Those,
godsend.
those photos are, I mean, those are gospel.
Yeah, and a big shout out. Thank you for sharing those with me, Lou, and a big shout out to him for what he did because we used it an awful lot. But I also will go back and say thank you for your expertise on the paint choices that we made. They really were they blended beautifully, from our French satin base coat to our secondary paint scheme, which was the gingham from Bear, which is it's an amazing paint in and of itself. I think it really was, and of course that lovely color combination, the one part white, one part white, one part blue.
One part light blue, two parts white.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The teeth aren't working, which gave us that third accent, and the beautiful.
There are some things we could not work around. And I think that you and I got results sometimes in spite of the model, not because of the model.
Yeah,
And one of the things we could not work around was where Helios put the windows.
no,
We
no,
couldn't. There's nothing we could do about it. We could block them in, but
yeah,
we're not going to drill out new ones. And
no,
I mean,
you couldn't do that.
the blatant error of putting the rim of windows along the secondary hull equator instead of letting us put more of those windows like are on the edge of the rim of the saucer. that was an unforced error. I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't have to make that mistake. They chose to make that mistake.
Well, and then while we're on the subject, well, missing the portholes, they missed the round portholes completely,
Right.
and they really came up short on the rear photon torpedo housing.
Photon torpedo housing was no
Yeah.
good. The
No.
the again, this goes into what they should have done on the saucer, but the fact that they didn't put any of the engraved grid lines on the secondary hull, particularly on the neck, really made it difficult to see where the windows line up against, the various levels of the neck.
Yeah.
All of that detail that should have been there that wasn't.
Well, well, I really appreciate the fact that you sort of, you went ahead and you test fit everything for me and then showed me the way so that I did not get lost. I mean, I did call a couple of times panicking because I couldn't find things because they were right in front of me. And, when you don't mix rocket fuel in your tub at night, you don't think about turning a page over to see if there's instructions on the other side, and you don't see
It's a
things
whole
that
new world on the other side.
yeah.
Well, let's
Thank
talk
you.
about the cast of characters, because good ideas come from everywhere. I'll
Yeah.
thank Andrew for the idea of cutting out the entire ring where the
Yeah.
phaser goes.
Yeah. No,
And
Andrew Bernard.
thank you for turning me on to the Proxon jigsaw to do that. We didn't do it necessarily the same way he did it, but the idea of that needing to be done
Yeah.
was an important step.
Yeah.
Certainly, when it comes down to panic calls in the middle of the night, you have to talk to Jeffrey Fink, and you have to
You gotta
talk to
love that man. I mean, he comes through every time. You gotta
well,
love
the amount of bacon that he saved for me on those impulse housings that I didn't end up needing.
him.
But things like the decals that now I got some artwork from Rick Sternbach.
Yeah.
He asked me not to publicize that too much, but I did. Um, I got some artwork from him. I redrew a lot of it. I created the lifeboats, things like that, and then handed that over to Keith to print it. So nobody walks through this world alone.
No.
All of these things happen because of different people putting their best skills in. Phil came up with that wonderful LCARS panel.
Well,
He found, he went out and found Taylor at the Metalworks company.
the
I
six.
wouldn't have known where to even start on something
Well,
like that.
I would say six other metal companies just ghosted me. They just wouldn't even return my calls.
Yeah, but even if I had the brains to figure out that I needed to do it, I'd have called one, gotten one rejection, and stopped.
Oh. Well, it was great. But listen, I'm glad you were here so that you guys could talk about what that frame should, because he needed some guidance, but he did come through for us.
Came
And
through excellently.
yeah, he did. And he did a great job on the control panels, and it serves its purpose, and I'm thrilled that we went with something as over-engineered, and I don't believe it really is
Oh,
over-engineered.
I don't think it's over-engineed at all.
No, I think
Not
it's
when you
exactly
consider
what
the weight
we
of that
needed.
ship.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it just it's what it needed, and anything less would have been a mitigated disaster.
It
So
would be anything less, it would already be drooping like this.
yeah,
I mean, you needed heavy gauge steel in that base.
yeah, yeah.
And the fact that you can make it look so elegant and and delicate as it is.
Well, I have a feeling we'll be going back to him, Lou, because he has the ability to cut metal with water jets,
Yeah.
through steel. And he talked to me a little bit about some of the things he wanted to try and do for us. But maybe, in the future, whatever we do, we'll do. Obviously, there'll be another Trek adventure. but we can think about a base in the form of a delta shield. We can, in the form
Yeah.
of whatever. We'll go back to him, and we'll come up with something else, because I know, even if it's on a smaller scale, we can do some things with him, and not just there. His skills, his printing skills, his CAD file skills. He can program Arduinos for us. So
Yeah.
who knows what we'll come up with in the future that we'll take advantage of that skill, because he's got untapped talent.
Yeah, for people who think that model makers do nothing but sit and hunch over top of their table and don't talk to anybody and don't communicate with the outside world and don't socialize, this puts that to rest, because it is it's a community effort.
It is, and it's great to have friends. And for all of you out there watching this this sort of recap, really be grateful for community. And if you don't, reach out to a local IPMS group, or find out from your local hobby shop if they have a group that you can join. And even if you can't make it every week or every month that they meet, make an effort to go out there, and you'll make some new friends. I promise you, you will not regret it. It is really worth it.
Come to a model show.
Come
Meet
to
your
a model
people.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'll feel better for it. Well, I think we'll end it there. Do you want to say your goodbyes, and then I will do mine, or you want to do that as a postmortem?
I don't have any goodbyes to say, because I'm not going anywhere. This is just the end of this chapter.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've got
absolutely
more
right.
models to build.
Okay, well, I'm going to be corny and say live long and prosper to everybody.
Wrong. Gonna say engage.
And here is the wrap up. You may have noticed I didn't change. I filmed both of these the same day, but you know how that works. What can you say? 15 weeks. Well, 14 weeks. This is chapter 13, plus a week off to go to England. So that's 14 weeks. And then add a couple of weeks in that I was getting stuff ready that I wasn't actually in construction on. So yeah, it's about 15 weeks. It's been an odyssey between the trips to California and back, and the trip to London and back, or England and back. It's been a whirlwind. Now, do I think I will ever do something like this again? Yeah, because I can't learn a lesson. I can't learn my lesson about getting in over my head on something really complicated. I can't say that I like throwing myself out to sea and see if I can get back in by myself or not. But that's the kind of stuff that stretches you. Sometimes you can get bored by, doing a bunch of safe models in a row. So while I certainly wasn't setting out to prove anything on this, I'm glad that at the end of the day, I'm glad that we took the trip and made this big ship. You can see it back here. It's lovely. What I'm going to be doing in the next week or so is building the piece of furniture that I've got on it for it to stand on. I've got a little cart that I can stand it on and maybe display it and a couple other recent builds and get them off of the table, get them protected. So until next week, when I'm going to be doing something completely 180 degrees different. I'm going to be doing a bust that has no decals, that has no lighting, that has no armature, and hopefully has no big expensive display space requirements. So until then, y'all be safe. Be good to each other. Have a happy holiday. Whichever, Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Boxing Day, whatever it is you celebrate coming up. Happy Festivus for the rest of us. Whatever it is, I hope you make it the best one you've ever had. And we'll be back here next week. Well, hell, we'll probably be back here on Friday with something. So y'all be good till then, and we'll see you later.